Hi, I'm Lisa K. Donner, Editor-in-Chief of Liberty Nation, and with me today to talk all things COVID is national correspondent Pennell Bird. Hi, Pennell, and welcome to LNTV.
Good afternoon, Lisa. It's great to be here with you.
Wow, there's an election going on, but I bet if you added it up, there would be just as much airtime and newspaper column inches based on COVID-19 as the election. I want to spend a few minutes in search of a little truth here. Without an agenda, where does America stand with regard to the coronavirus as we sit here today?
Well, official numbers say we're over 200,000 deaths, but I want to give a little perspective. The original projections from the Imperial College model back in March were 2.2 million US deaths. So by that standard, we're doing pretty well. We have a higher rate of infection going into the fall. Some of that is that winter causes flu to arrive and other things. But as far as the numbers proper are concerned, we're doing pretty well. I think infections are up because it's very virulent, but the deaths are not significant.
So I think one of the things maybe we learned is that this is a very infectious disease, but not necessarily a deadly disease. Do you agree with that?
I agree with that entirely. The virulence is very, very significant. People get it very easily, but most people are asymptomatic. And the CDC's own numbers say that 99.74% of people recover fully from having COVID, and just 0.26 or 0.25% of people die who get COVID. So those things need to be kept in perspective as we consider the numbers.
Are we sort of dealing with some funny numbers here? I mean, a while back there was the CDC counting all manner of people, and then the WHO changing its mind. I mean, what's the real scoop here?
The numbers have been all over the place, haven't they? We are getting mixed messaging from the World Health Organization, from Anthony Fauci, from our own US Surgeon General on everything from the numbers to the efficacy of masking to the efficacy of quarantines. So it's really hard to know. People really have to search out the truth for themselves. So with regard to, are there some funny numbers? Yes, meaning there are a lot of different funny numbers and people have to do their own research to get to the truth of it.
You know, it wasn't talked about too much, but there was a story about the seasonal flu in South America. Can you talk about that a little bit for our viewers today?
Yeah, it's quite an interesting phenomenon, and a lot of doctors and medical people are really trying to drill down or unpack what's going on there. And obviously, in the Southern Hemisphere, they've had their first flu season since COVID because their winter begins before ours. And what they found is a 98% drop in the incidence of influenza. So no one's quite sure why. There are a lot of different conjectures. Are the mitigation efforts for COVID helping with flu? Is there a competition between the viruses, there is some science for that. No one really knows yet. But I think the fact that people the world over have probably sanitized and washed their hands more this year than in any year in the history of humankind probably has something to do with it.
Well, that certainly can't hurt, can it? I mean,
No.
Not mentioning that when you go into a restaurant now, you kind of feel like it's cleaner. When you go into an airplane, feel like it's been sanitized. I mean, some good things have come out of this. But anyway, it seems to me like we have two different views of America. We've got Donald Trump saying, we're rounding the curve. And we've got Joe Biden saying it's going to be a long, dark winter. In your humble opinion, and you're not a doctor, but you get to play one on TV today because you've done a ton of research and you've written myriad stories on libertynation.com that are very popular and well researched. So give me your take. Where does America truly lie in that timeline continuum?
I think there's reason for optimism. the president was optimistic. He contracted COVID, as you know, and he was out of the hospital within 4 days and sort of put it in his rearview mirror. And his message to the American people was, don't let it dominate your life. And I think that's exactly right. It's not just a false optimism. What he's saying is there are reasons to fear being sick. There are reasons to fear this virus, but we really need to protect the vulnerable and the elderly. Everybody else should get back to work. All the kids should be back in school. That is, I think, the real messaging that we need to hear right now. To hear it's going to be a long, dark winter and a lot of people are going to die is not going to do anyone any good, because it's really not an accurate perspective of what the threat posed by COVID-19.
All right, I'm going to let you close on one of your favorite topics. What happens when we get the vaccine?
That's a very good question, Lisa. My feeling is as follows with regard to the vaccine. I think it's being developed too quickly. The world record for vaccines development is 4 years. We're trying to do this in 8 or 10 months. We're not going to have safety trials that mean much of anything, and there certainly won't be any long-term safety trials. Interestingly, a lot of people are now cautious about the vaccine, especially on the Democrat side. Kamala Harris, Joe Biden, increasing numbers of Democrats are saying they won't take it. So in an interesting way, people are becoming anti-vaxxers, or at least showing some concern. When the vaccine arrives and it's given the green, the thumbs up by the administration, then I think people who want to take it should be allowed to take it, and those who do not should also be allowed not to take it without being penalized or subject to any punitive measures.
It also should be considered that there is no pediatric vaccine. That is going to be years away. So that adolescents and young people, they pretty much should start getting back to school at this point.
I firmly believe that children need to get back in school. The ancillary impacts from COVID, meaning World Bank estimated between 88 and 114 million people are thrust into extreme poverty in just the last 8 months. Kids the world over, their educations have been impacted. Kids are really not under threat from COVID. They just are not. There are no numbers to suggest that. We need to figure out a way to get all our children back in school and get our businesses open, because we're worried about something with a 0.26 mortality rate. And that doesn't warrant these incredibly overreaching measures.
And finally, I guess what I want to ask you, and you may not know anything about this, but I've heard quite a bit. That is, you live in California. Apparently, the governor there has come up with some pretty onerous restrictions for the holidays. And what I'm noticing here is that, people aren't really caring too much. They're sort of going about their lives. Of course, they'll wear a mask when they're at the grocery store, but
sure,
they're having events and they're going about their lives. Is this true about Governor Gavin Newsom?
Unfortunately, yes. He has joined a number of other, mostly Democrat governors who have issued these really almost satirically overreaching measures. And for Gavin Newsom, and for Thanksgiving, he's saying you need to wear a mask. You can remove it to take a bite, and then you've got to put it back on in order to chew. You need to be 6 feet away from everybody. You can only have 3 families. No one's allowed to shout or sing. It's again, I think beyond parody. And and your point is well taken, that people are starting to get that our leaders, given the chance, may go a little power mad. And that's really been the case in California. I want to attribute all good intentions to our governor, but when something like some rules for chewing come from Sacramento, something's off. So yeah, it's getting beyond the pale.
I have to say, I almost didn't believe when I read those. I had to ask you because I know you live out there, but no more than 3 families. So if you have 4 siblings, you're out, so-and-so. You know, how do you do that? You know.
Well, I think you, as a mother, you say you number your children in order of who's your most favorite, your second favorite, your least favorite, and that one's the one you put out in the doghouse with a nice plate, you know, of turkey and stuffing.
Perfect, perfect. Yeah. Well, America's getting a real close look at a dysfunctional family in the electorate, but in the election. But I won't go there.
No.
Thank you so much. That's Liberty Nation's national correspondent, Pernell Bird. Thanks, Pernell.
Thank you very much, Lisa. It was great to be with you today.
And thank you, our viewers, for tuning into Liberty Nation. And remember to hit our website, libertynation.com, for conservative news where truth matters. And remember, liberty all the time and everywhere. Have a nice day. Go deeper on the topic discussed in this video. Head on over to one of these links here or go to our Liberty Nation Roku channel. Thanks so much for watching, and don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell for Liberty.